you told me it was a peaceful protest at first, but then it started to turn. Like, why? I'm like the typical run-of-the-mill white guy who says, "Hey, I'm not a racist. I try to treat everybody nice and everything." So what am I missing? Why do these protests turn the way that they do?
I
Do you
would say
think?
because you there's a difference in the groups. Usually people are watching the footage. It's noontime and news at 12. And then you see this protest. And then you see news at 3. And then you still see the protest going. And then by the 6 o'clock news, it looks a certain way and it's still peaceful and good. Then you get about to the 10 o'clock news and then it's breaking news. But by 10 o'clock, the protesters are gone. And that's when the rabble rousers and the anarchists show up. And they mix into the crowd. Like, I saw that. So most people think because it's visual, and then a lot of media isn't. Even media, how does media know? You don't know unless you're on the ground. What's the difference? Because you're just looking at literally thousands of people. So I didn't come there with any Molotov cocktails, a crowbar, or anything like that. Neither did any of my people or the groups that we were meeting and mingling with. Now, we're trying to social distance, but thousands of people were there. So, but we're all there for the same cause. We're trying to create space. I've tried to maintain my mask, I would say 99.7% of the time, because I got a little thing about that. So we didn't come there for that. They had the milk for the tear gas, all that stuff, free water.
People that you say the anarchists come in and try to agitate the situation. Why do you think that happens?
Because it's easy. It's easy to come in and disrupt everything when you have a large group of people and they don't like the police. They don't like the structure of government. It's almost like The Walking Dead. These are the Negans before they're Negan, right? So they have these divisive minds, and they're there. We called them out. Hey, that dude threw something. That guy did something. So the protesters are basically trying to rally against them, but there's a tipping point when somebody's throwing frozen bottles of water at you. So they don't know what that is, or you see them flying over your head. So we're trying to get control of things, but then some people start running. They're scared now.
Right. You were kind of like, right in the middle of it. And I did see a lot of people, like people that were there as peaceful protesters, coming to the defense of the police under certain circumstances, and that kind of thing. So that was, that was nice to see. But
we were there to protest, and I don't even see why in the future we can't work with the police to protest.
Let's talk a little bit about race in general. This is such a difficult issue to talk about. You very rarely get people just saying, well, we got to talk about race, right? So, there's definitely experiences that people of color have that people who are white don't have, right? So what am I missing? And in fact, we're going to bring Chops in over here. Chops, I would say those, you don't know some of the stuff they haven't. So what is it that we're talking about? Because a lot of people will say, gee, there were some people that have businesses there in Boston, right? Say you're like a white business owner and you spend years, building, like Chops has a studio, I think, or something. Let's say you build up a business, right? And then somebody comes and trashes it, and that person says, "Hey, I didn't have anything to do with George Floyd,"
And
so what about that? Yeah.
To me, it's unfortunate, but once again, those are the people they're the opportunists of the group. They look at it as an opportunity, smash whatever they want to do. You just can't tell the difference between a protester and a rioter, and there is a difference between a protester and a rioter by the actions.
We have a lot more African-American police officers, right? In fact, I think New York City has more African-American police officers than white police officers now. So that's got to be like a help to this situation, an African-American police officer is going to come into the situation with maybe some extra knowledge that, or extra experiences maybe that the white police officer wouldn't, correct?
Absolutely. You're comfortable with what you've been around. So if you're a white officer and you see another white person, you're associated with them. You're okay. But if you don't know what you don't know, and you see a person of color and you're not comfortable with people of color, and that's not how you grew up, and your background, as a matter of fact, was negative against people of color, now you're already geared to profiling.
My oldest son was thinking about being a police officer at one time, and I thought, gee, I think I think he would be good because he's calm and he's, I thought he'd be great. Because my wife was like, I don't want my kid being, obviously a mother is going to say that no matter who the mother is, right?
Right.
He ended up doing something else. But then I thought to myself, like, and I think a cousin or we're at like one of the cookouts and they're like, oh, you sure you want your son to be in a cop? If he pulls over an African-American person who is not a truthful person, they're going to say, you stopped me because, you're a racist and
right.
you want your son going through that, right? So what about that? Like, is it legitimate for me to worry about that when he was thinking about being a police officer?
No.
Right.
He has nothing. He's trained for this. If you're going to be an officer, you're trained for this. It's obvious the George Floyd dude neglected his training. So, and I feel a lot of officers deviate from that training for their own reasons, and that's when issues happen, and that's where the gray areas are created, where they get out of hand. And I still believe an officer needs to protect himself in any situation. So if he has to go through somebody calling him a racist because they're really being shady about something and trying to deflect, he just continues to do his job, run the check, see what comes back, do your job, and protect yourself. There was an F the police chant going on that I couldn't participate, and I would yell while I'm there, nope, that's not it, nope, sorry. And people are turning around, these young kids turning around looking at me, and I'm looking right back in the eye. Nope, that's not the way. Nope. I have many police officer friends, like good friends, as I was telling you before. Scott Carolla was the number one most worried person about me. And towards the end, when everything got nutty, I got one of the last messages, I hope you're out of Boston.
Like, if you're a white police officer and you could get falsely accused of profiling or something like that, right?
I comply. You ask for my license and registration. I even over comply. Officer, I'm about to go inside my glove compartment because that's where my insurance proof is. Okay. And then why are you? Because I want to make sure you're comfortable. And I'll open it. And I don't reach in. I open it. I let them see what's in there. Now, some black folks are going to be like, wow, you go through a lot. Yeah, because I don't want to get shot. Because I can't tell the difference between a good cop and a bad cop. I've had friends he got roughed up. He got beat up and left in the Everglades when I was in Florida.
Oh, man.
Cops got him and his friends because he was mouthing off. They beat him and they threw him in the back of the cop car, beat him up, took their shoes, drove him out somewhere and left them.
Oh, it's just gut-wrenching story to hear. These are the kinds of things that I think make us all think, right?
Absolutely.
So, like in the LA riots, right? Remember the truck driver that accidentally drove into the riot, Reginald Denny. So he's coming to Florence and Normandy. He got pulled out of the car and he got hit in the head with the brick, right? Now, there were a couple of other African Americans who went and saved him, too. So that's important to know that. But that was a racially motivated assault. White people like to bring up those kind of cases too and say, well, what about that too? You know what I'm saying? What do you?
But it's telling the difference. Those weren't protesters. But
no, I was going to say,
what will associate them with protesters because protesters were in the area before and they were large groups, so it has to be them. But no, it's not.
There are reprehensible acts that anybody could point to. The Floyd thing, which makes you sick to your stomach, and I just brought the Reginald Denny just to kind of, say, hey, sometimes somebody gets, something they didn't deserve, somebody that owns a store or whatever. But I know there's something that the average, we talked about this before, Fitz, there's something that the average white person isn't seeing, right? So what is it that we're missing?
As I mentioned before,
you have 30 seconds.
It's privilege.
Privilege.
That's what they don't see.
I said, am I privileged a little bit, you think?
Oh, yeah. You got plenty of privilege. You're dripping. You're oozing.
If
we put a little dish on it's going to be like it's raining. Privilege. Look at this privilege. But you wouldn't be able to see it. Me and Chops see it. Me and Chops are like,
wait. I'm gonna get.
Look at that privilege. You see it on his ear right there.
I'm gonna get Chops in here. What kind of experiences have you had, Chops, that you would say that and you would say to me, you know, Paul, this would never have happened to you. Like,
oh, do we have that much time?
That's a good one. You like that one, huh?
Yeah, I can write a book, Paul.
What?
You know, I can write a book. You know, you experience a lot of things, especially being in the music business. We talked about that earlier. People stereotype, you know, and they judge a book by its cover. And that's the problem. I think that's one of the problems. My grandma used to say, all that glitters ain't gold.
When I first started seeing Chops perform, you know, I complimented him on the fact that he's so versatile. You know, he does Frank Sinatra, and he does Lou Rawls, and he does, you know, he even did you know, Perry Como, and I'm like, Perry Como, that's unbelievable. You know, it's not. My grandmother used to watch Perry Como and Lawrence Welk. You know, Perry Como and Frank Sinatra and all that, right? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know. So then after, I was thinking to myself, would I have asked you that if you were a white performer? I'm going to ask Fitz.
Well, I don't think so.
You were doing like Perry Como, and somebody said, hey, why don't you do like, what they say, why don't you do the Temptations or something?
Like that? Stick to the R&B. Stick to singing B.B. King, the blues, you know?
So now I'm serious. Like, why in the hell would anybody say that? I don't get it. I don't understand that.
Well, people, you know, they have their own reasons. I think it's stereotype, as we said, you know, it's stereotype, and they try to put you in a box, you know. Well, I sort of think outside the box, like Nat King Cole did. The great Nat King Cole, they wanted to confine him. They said, well, you know, I like singing Spanish music. They said, no, man, you start singing, you know, the R&B, the jazz. You're cool with that, but don't go outside that box, you know. Right. So they want to put you in a box.
Yeah. Suppose I was a singer, right? I came out and I said, you know, I'm going to do some Michael Jackson or something, and you know, and I went into a moonwalk or something. What don't you say? Hey, Santos, I didn't know you could do that.
Exactly, man. Hey, you know, if you do it, you're a hero. If I do it, man, hey, just, you know what I
mean? The thing about, you know, when Chops told me, the guy said, hey, play the Temps, you know. You know, no, it's almost like upsetting but funny at the same time, you know.
Absolutely.
There's always it's sort of like, you know, it's like a stereotype, you know. And by the way, I got to tell this story too. I was telling Fitz, right? Fitz, you told me that you purposely have a car, you know, where they say "pimp my ride." You told me that you purposely had a car that was not pimped up too much because you just didn't want to be bothered, like, you know, being
not pimped up at all.
No, so if you had a car that was all,
you
told me before that you had a Cadillac that was all shined up and all that. So you're saying to me that you would get pulled over more in that car than like if you had a kind of a quieter looking car kind of thing, not as sharp. Is that right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I had pickup trucks.
Really. Is that true? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's profiling, man. It's profiling. That's how it works.
I had this maroon Cadillac, and you know, it wasn't that long ago. Like, I'm in my 50s. This is probably like 8 years ago. So I put these rims on the car. You know, it's like, what the hell? I don't, you know, this is one last little, you know, thing for me, right? So I put these. My wife's like, you really want to put rims on the car? I put rims on the car. So I put these like flashy rims on the car, right? So I'm driving down the street, you know. So I get to an intersection in New Bedford, right? And there was like I'd say a group of like 18, 20-year-old, you know, maybe 5 or 6 African-American kids, right? So what's the next thing that happened, Fitz?
Oh, damn! Look at the rims on this ride right here. This what? Because that would be me. Because that's what I want.
So I'm telling Fitz the story, and before I can finish it, he told me what happened.
Absolutely.
Good. That was
Absolutely.
Good.
We like the nice stuff too.
I felt like I was the hippest 45-year-old guy in New Beige.
See, but you still got a connection with him, right? Because you had the cool, flashy stuff, man. Everybody likes nice things.
All right, so it's not like we were talking about that story earlier today. So I said to myself, is that a story that, like, people might say, well, what are you trying to say? Or you like that people would say, I don't know, it has like a stereotypical thing to it, that, the African American kids were going to like those wheels, say, better than, if it was somebody else that was there,
They probably would. They probably would.
Hey,
But I
Chops,
think it's through the music videos and you see that kind of stuff in music videos, commercials, and whatnot. And then you want it, you kind of covet, and then you see it in real life. Doesn't matter who pulls up, but now it's kind of like we were talking with the moonwalk. If Chops does it, it's expected. Yeah, he got rhythm. But if you do it, you're a hero. So now when you show up with rims, they're like, yo, he gets it. That dude's
So I'm an attorney. Like a lot of people that see me doing this media thing, this is sort of like my side gig, what I kind of love to do. But as a career,
right.
I chose to be an attorney. I was a prosecutor for a long time. I was a defense attorney for a long time. By the way, I saw a lot of great cops, and you guys both know great cops. I also saw a few a-holes, and they were not they roughed up some white people too. So most of the cops are great too, but the ones that weren't, they weren't so good to the white people either. But I'm just saying that. I'm in court, right? So I think it was an intern. I think the kid was either an intern in a clerk's office or was an intern in probation. 6'5", 20 years old, great looking kid, African American, right? So I'm looking at the kid and I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm Paul Santos. Nice to have you. So the first thing I thought of was, hey, the Celtics could use you this year, because I'm a big Celtics fan, right? Well, the Celtics could. Exactly. So then I'm thinking, no, I ain't. Look at Chops. I'm in trouble now. No, but here's the thing, right? So a couple of months before that, I was leaving court, right? So I'm leaving court, and I got like my briefcase, and I got my suit, and I got my glasses, and I'm graying at the temples and all that. And somebody goes, "Hey, Santos, you look like a congressman, So I'm like, all right, yeah, Congressman Santos. Yeah, I like that. Sounds pretty good, So my question to you guys is, right, why did the person say that about me? Well, because I was white, middle-aged, dressed in a suit, and I look like most of the congressmen, right? So
absolutely
does the same thing, like most of the members of the Celtics are young African American, 20 years old, good-looking, tall, slim kids, So like, why is it because of the history? See, I'm thinking it's because of our history that it doesn't match up the same way. If I was going to say that,
a congressman can be looked at as this affluent position, right? A basketball player, you're playing for your talent. So, nobody only really wants to be known just for this or that. They want to feel like it's a little bit more and not be pigeonholed. So,
right.
But I don't even think it's that bad because it's still kind of complimentary. You're talking about, hey, there's only so many people who can actually play in the NBA, right?
Yeah,
so if you're like, damn, you look like that kind of quality cut of a person, I don't think that's that big of a deal. That's all you can do. Like some teachers have told kids, like, you should just consider basketball or some sports or something. Can you sing? But
I just want to tell you that I decided to keep that to myself.
See, you're getting it, man. You're getting it.
Here's the thing, right? I don't like to offend anybody. I like to be nice to everybody, but I also love humor.
Hey, man, humor is the last left place that you can just let loose and be yourself.
I don't want to
just kind of get it out there.
But I don't want a lot of people who are comedians and stuff like that. They don't want to say the wrong thing, trying to be funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I still feel like if they're saying it in jest, if you throw out hateful stuff, it's obvious. But if you're just joking about common observation that we typically call stereotype, then I think we see it, and that's what makes it funny. But then when you're trying to generalize with the same stereotype, that's when it gets a little bit more on the hurtful side of things.
All right, we got a lot of people watching from a lot of different places tonight, so that's great. Somebody saying, "Hey, Chops, you guys are crazy." Another lady said, "Love the dynamics between you all." Well, that's good. We're having a conversation, and we're talking with each other. We're laughing with each other. We're not yelling at each other. Yeah. We're trying to learn from each other. Is there a way to stop them without stopping the people that are peacefully protesting?
Yes.
How do you think that is?
Better organization within the protest group would help with an exit strategy, because that is where you can ask the police, you can ask first responders. At the end of the protest is when it all goes to hell every single time. Every single time. You didn't hear, these people didn't start protesting at noon. They didn't protest at 3. They didn't protest at 6. It was all, once the darkness comes in, that's like the song said, the freaks come out at night. So
Well,
all these nutty people.
The one of the things I noticed was, in all fairness, in all deference to the organizers, right? In all due respect, what we say, with all due respect, the next sentence isn't that good.
Oh yeah. Oh, he about to say something crazy, y'all.
No, but they, like, why didn't they have the protest at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock? When they said 6:30, okay, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, people that want to raise hell like to do it later on in the night, right?
I agree. I think it should have ended. I think it should have been earlier and maybe end around 8 to give you enough time to clear everybody out. And then you're good. And then having certain identifying markers with protesters. If we can rally together, we all know that we're Black. There can be things within our groups that we can do so police can identify who the protesters are and who the rioters are and who these other folks are. And then using social media and just the phones we have, take pictures of these people, because some of these people, they're going to be doing some other nonsense later and they might show up on somebody else's camera. So if we have more identification with the people who are, and as a group, the protesters focus on that facet as well, then we can start, then the general public, I feel, will understand, oh my God, all this, I had explained to somebody yesterday, there's a difference between protesters and rioters. Us protesters were leaving. The rioters were coming in.
We're all here. We're all, trying to learn from each other, trying to get along and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And there's a lot of good out there that people are doing and they have been doing. It's just the bad eggs that creep in.
I want to get Chops in here because
you gotta get me in, man.
Tag me in, baby.
I'm enjoying it, man.
So, because you're a performer, you've performed like all over the country, right? So, like, what have there been any experiences that you can remember in the back of your mind that you thought, gee, that wasn't right, what happened here or what happened there, kind of thing?
Oh yeah, many.
No, it's not really.
Yeah. When I did that wedding, remember I told you earlier?
Yeah.
And the guy, me and the guy in my group, he's Italian. So the guy came up to me and said, "Hey, man, why don't you sing My Way by Frank Sinatra?" So he's assuming that the Italian guy is going to sing it. So we're both laughing because we know what the outcome's going to be. So he's not expecting me to sing it. He said, "Can you do Sinatra?" He's telling him. He said, "Yeah, we can do it." So when he saw me ever started singing that song with 300 people in the audience in the wedding, he actually looked, he waved his hand and walked out. He walked out. So, you know what I mean?
I was at one of the festivals that Chops was performing, and he's saying My Way, and I was like, oh, because I'm a friend of Chops. I love his music. I love his performances. So he did My Way, but I don't think I was like surprised that you did it. I was like, all right, for My Way, everybody probably does My Way. I think that's something. But anyway, so I mean, Perry Como, I was a little surprised. Right. Hey, you're doing the Andy Williams? But anyway, but like Frank Sinatra, I thought, yeah, right, thanks, Sinatra. So, but you do like an awesome My Way. It was great. It was great. Yeah. And then you do that little pause at the end. He goes, "Yes, I did it my way." Like that little pause at the end there. Oh my God, it was fantastic. It was great. Yeah. So what? That guy left because
he actually walked out. He was hot. He was pissed off. And we didn't get it.
You wanted the Italian guy.
We just said, let him go do it. Hey, you take it with a grain of salt, man. My grandma said always, always walk with dignity and pride, and hold your head up high, and kill him with a smile. So it might hurt you because someone does that. if I was in my younger age and I didn't have the wisdom that I had, and I was taught the wisdom that I was taught.
Yeah, right.
I was able to deal with that kind of.
Well, I think the thing that is most worrisome to just about everyone, whether you're a
Yeah,
white American, African American, whatever you are, right?
right,
Um, is the violence, because when the violence bubbles over, there were rocks being thrown off an overpass or whatever. So, like, any one of us could be driving home tonight, and all of a sudden
Absolutely.
somebody throws a rock. I was just gonna say chops off of an overpass. Somebody was saying, and so, like, like it's an innocent person, whether white, black, or whatever, that gets caught up in this whole thing. So I think like the white people that I know that you know too would always say, yeah, but I don't get how is the looting and the violence? How is that gonna do anything? How's that not gonna make it worse, right? So
right.
Right.
what is it? What do you say about that?
Well, the looting and the violence does make it worse. It wasn't a part of what we had planned, and it usually never is with the protesters. Uh, it's I think once the organization gets better with protesting and people really realize, because now I saw it. Like I would have been like everybody else and thought the protesters were looting after a while, because that was my mentality. But once I'm there and I can see the physical, like with my eyes, these people are here now and they're in their groups and they're throwing stuff and we're calling them out and people are yelling at them. Like you could feel the energy change. Before it was like
Right.
this movement. It was solidarity. We're chanting and we're all into this. And then as the night falls, the inappropriate the weed smoke you can start smelling. The guys walking around drinking are popping up. Nobody was doing that all day, all
Yeah,
day,
right.
and then all of a sudden you can literally smell the element coming in, and then the energy began to change, and then we realized, and she already said it was time to go. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here, and that's when, as we're halfway across, and we're trying to meet up with the rest of our group who was already gone,
Right.
because they were in the garage, but we couldn't get a message to them. We had walkie-talkies too. The tear
One of the
gas starts popping off and it's coming towards us, and we just had to get the hell out of there.
I saw the police car being burned, and Fitz, you were there. I know New Bedford Live was there, or being simulcast on New Bedford Live. I remember seeing the police car on fire, which is sad, right? And then I also saw some of the protesters that was still there, and I think it was either your camera or somebody that was with you, and your group was like, "Hey, let the officers get to that car.
Yeah,
We got to get
yeah,
the
they
fire
took control of the situation like
like,
very well.
yeah, so that, I was thinking, all right, that made me feel good that, you get a lot of people of different backgrounds of everything trying to help the officers. The officers are there. That was their night to
Mm-hmm.
be on assignment or whatever. Is there ever a time like they want to bring in National Guard and stuff like that? I mean, is there a time where we say, hey, okay, we've had situations like this in our big cities. We need to, sort of get control of the situation, right? So we send some help in there, whether it's a National Guard or whatever. Maybe you line up on the sidewalks and say we're going to protect the businesses and stuff like that. Maybe we're going to have to use some tear gas just to clear out the crowd. A lot of folks will say, "Boy, that conjures up some bad memories of
It
times."
definitely does.
Right. So
But
is there ever a time that, in order to get control of our cities, in order to protect the public at large, that we want the authorities to step it up to something like that?
absolutely, you have to protect people. Property can be replaced,
Right.
and build anything that you burn down. These buildings, they can all be replaced. Human life can't be replaced, and that's why everybody has been so enraged in that, and creates that tension. So I do believe, but burning buildings creates hazards for people, of course, especially if they're in them. So we have to be mindful of like just how it's all going down.
I think a lot of white people would say, okay, look, why don't we just send in the National Guard, shoot off the tear gas, get control of the situation, and stop horsing around with the agitators, right? And
If
and a lot of African Americans would say, no, gee, wait a minute, it's more complicated than that. Like hold off, hold off on that, right? So,
if the police can't control it, then yes, but there has to be a mindful communication, and that's what I feel has been missing between protesters and police. If if we have certain cues for each other and we communicate that ahead of time, then they'll know, okay, the protesters should be gone. Whoever's not complying right now is not among that peaceful group. Yeah, I don't. If they're breaking property and doing whatever and acting nutty in the streets, yeah, go get them. Send that tear gas in. Do what you got to do to clear it out.
You know, now that we have more African American police mixed in with the white officers to go into different communities with different perspectives, that's got to be a big thing. And you like to see more.
It's a huge help. It evens the playing field, in my opinion, and it helps to create a better connection with the community, because I feel like if you see somebody in authority who kind of looks like you, it's probably going to be a little easier to a degree for you to feel a little less on edge when stereotypically every white officer, when I was young, every officer was white. That's just the way it was. But seeing them, and kind of like the story I told you with the state trooper who pulled me over, and he was a black officer and told me, and I was going, he said, how fast were you going? I said, 66 miles per hour. And he was like, yes, the speed limit is 65. You never go faster than me, ever. And then he looked me right in the eye and said, you never go faster than any state trooper on this highway, ever. On the road.
You should be a little more careful passing that officer than like I might be. Is that what you're saying?
At 1 mile per hour, yes, sir. 1 mile per hour more. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm not disbelieving you. I'm just like most people, I don't really think about that stuff, you know.
Well, because you don't have to.
I know that there are white police officers. I'm
so
saying,
let me throw that in.
I don't do that. I don't do that. You know, so I don't know why these folks are saying this, because I don't do that. I don't.
Yeah, but
that's
nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about. We're not talking about the good ones, but right. Unfortunately, I mean, it's kind of like when women say they ain't no good men out there. I'm like, oh, because I'm with the bitch. Hello.
All right, so chops. So, like, did you ever get stopped, like, about Mississippi or something like that?
Huh?
So we're not talking about Mississippi or Alabama.
No, there was Mississippi.
All right.
When I was down south, I never got stopped. Thank God. Thank God for that. But there are some good officers out there. You know, there's some good ones out there. And fortunately, I'm on the road a lot. I never encountered that, but thank God for that. You know.
So I know you said that you perform at a lot of functions. Sometimes you get recognized, right, by the office of the stop.
Oh yeah, a lot of them know me. Oh yeah, a lot of them know me. Oh yeah, a lot of them know me because I do a lot of big stuff for, like I said, the state troopers and sometimes the local police and the town police. So I mean, I haven't had any encounters, you know. So it's a blessing.
I think most people are what their life experiences are. Whatever their life experiences are is what they are, you know. You know, if you're born into a family that has some means and some ability and some structure and things like that, that's going to be well for you. If you're born into a situation where there's all kind of problems, there's domestic violence, you know, there's different things like that, that's going to not be good for you, you know. We can't solve all this in 1 hour tonight. So again, Fitz, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Fitz, nice to meet you, man.
Definitely a pleasure, Chop.
I was born by the river in a little tent, you know, just like the river. I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. My grandma used to say, it's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long, A long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to the movies. Then I go downtown. Somebody keeps saying to me, Chops Turner, you better stop hanging around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, man.
We're going to definitely pick up this conversation again. Our thoughts and prayers to everyone. Coronavirus, the issues that confront us as a community, and of course, my thanks to the psychic of the century, Mr. Chops Turner. I'm Paul Santos from the Paul Santos
Thank
Show.
you, Fitz.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Right
Thank
here. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.